What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SVMTG on the YouTube.com. Down there we like magic. I'm in my nighttime form right now. I actually have a whole other video recorded for you that I'm going to kick it to here in just a second. I'm going to throw it over to daytime Dev. But since I recorded that video, I had my trivia gig and I didn't have time to edit the first video, so I'm just going to make them into one big video because we got like 4 more cards while I was doing trivia. So I want to go over those real quick, go in order from, I guess, newest to oldest here. So let's look over what we've got recently. For instance, they just tried to spoil a new card while I'm recording here, but they didn't get me. Here's Treasure Keeper. It's the newest card spoiled today. This is like a minute old as I record this video. It's 4 of anything for an artifact creature. It's a construct, and it's a 3/3. When Treasure Keeper dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, so this is my fresh reaction to this card. Again, I just first read it like 2 minutes ago. Holy crap! Like, this is uncommon. This is uncommon that any old deck can play, including every Emerge deck in the format. Imagine that, by the way. In an Emerge deck, you're probably already playing a number of 3-mana options, including any of those commons, including the Simic one that looks to be specifically good in an Emerge deck. So you can emerge into a Reflector Mage, or even a Matter Reshaper for that matter, or a million other things. Spells, creatures, it really doesn't matter as long as it's non-land. And this is just an uncommon. This is an uncommon that allows you to cast spells for free, and any deck can play it, and it's ridiculous in Emerge. So, like, you see, my stutter's coming out because, like, I'm just kind of taken aback by the power level. Again, I will say this in this video a few times, I am taken back by the power level of the uncommons in this set. The uncommons are ridiculous. This looks like a crazy limited environment that we're about to walk into. So, oh, look at this thing. Like, this will probably see some competitive play. You know, this sort of, I mean, we love Solemn Simulacrum, right? And, like, this looks in that vein. Hello, Julie. So, who you'll also see a few times in this video. But, oh my god, this card looks good. This card looks good. Definitively, yes. Here's Hidden Herbalists. That's a funny name. It's 2 mana. That's a 1 and a green for a 2/2 human druid with Revolt. When Hidden Herbalist enters the battlefield, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, you get 2 green mana. Herbalists. They're Herbalists. And if a creature that you controlled, or like any permanent left the battlefield or whatever died, something like that, then they give you green. That's awful nice of them. But I guess, you know, jokes aside, this looks like Burning-Tree Emissary to a lot of people, and it's like, not Burning-Tree Emissary. Not at all. You know, Revolt is a lot harder to activate than just when it enters the battlefield, you know. Burning-Tree Emissary is better in that way, and it provides you different colors of mana if you want it to, so just Emissary is way better. But, you know, I guess in Modern this does work with, like, fetch lands and stuff if you wanted to, so there's that. I think the card is pretty, honestly, kind of good. There's probably ways to break this in Standard, like, kind of easily. Like, on turn 3, you could just, like, pop an Evolving Wilds and then play this. You get 2 green mana, you play another 2-drop. Like, there's ways to do it fairly easily. So I like the card, and we'll see what happens with it. I think that it's got applications. It just has to find a home. I was talking about Mono Green Stompy. Talking that good mess about Mono Green Stompy the other day, and this looks like it might be a piece for it. The deck wants to go fast and play a bunch of creatures all at once, and this is pretty good for doing that. Here's Gifted Aetherborn right here. It's 2 black mana for a 2/3 Aetherborn Vampire with Death Touch and Lifelink. Vampire Night Chicken, people are saying, because it doesn't fly, right? It's like a Vampire Nighthawk. They just cut a mana off of it, and they cut flying off of it. Basically the deal you get here. Still a really good deal. And this is really a menace in sealed and draft. You know, in limited environments, this thing looks freaking-tastic if you can get it on turn 2. It's going to block a lot of stuff in the format, favorably for that matter. And it'll trade with literally everything, just in a 2-drop. That's really good. And you get lifelink on top of that. Here's Spire Patrol right here. Another bomb uncommon from this set. There's a lot of good uncommons in this set. This is 4 mana, that's 2, a white and a blue for a 3/2 human soldier with flying. And it's got, when Spire Patrol enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. The creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Alright, budget blue-white tempo. This is the top of your curve right here. This plays pretty well the turn after a Reflector Mage. You know, get that thing off the battlefield. They can't play it next turn. Next turn you get to freeze down something else. Oh, that's awesome, and that deck really could have used some flying, and it finally got it right here. So, you know, even maybe like blue-white humans with like Thalia's Lieutenant and Thraben Inspector, a couple of other things. I mean, I could definitely see it working in a budget deck. Willing to try it out. because I really, really like tempo sort of aggro decks, you know. Always, you know, one of my favorite kind of decks. And with Reflector Mage in this, we've got two like ultra powerful pieces that won't break the bank. So I don't think it's going to do great in constructed play, but there's always like the fact that there's, you know, Reflector Mage, and then this on turn 4, and then Cloud Blazer available turn 5. You got Panharmonicon in that deck, so we're looking at a pretty cheap deck that's got a lot of really, really cool effects in it, and a decent curve. Here's Renegade Wheelsmith right here. It's 3 mana, that's 1, a red, and a white for a 3/2 Dwarf Pilot. And whenever Renegade Wheelsmith becomes tapped, target creature can't block this turn. Is it just me, or is this shaping up to be like one of the best limited environments like ever? All of these uncommons are just so good and do pretty, you know, they do good work with other themes and mechanics within the block. You know, like this is obviously meant to crew vehicles, but even if it just attacks and doesn't crew a vehicle, swings in, still get to keep a creature from blocking. In aggro, creatures like this are actually usually pretty good. You know, it's like a Frenzied Goblin or something. So that's not bad. This could actually maybe see some possibly competitive play. I wouldn't count it out. I don't think it's incredible or anything, and you'll probably still want to play Depala or Pia Nalar in that slot. But at the same time, you know, in an aggro deck, an effect that takes the best blocker off the field is always ridiculous. So I wouldn't count this out seeing 1 or 2 of play. I really wouldn't. The card looks good. First thing I want to cover real quick is that Shock is back with beautiful new art. I love that Shock is back. There was a guy on Mythic Spoiler like, yay, said nobody. No, I say yay. If you're expecting Lightning Bolt, you're expecting the wrong thing. It's not going to get reprinted in Standard, at least for a long time. And if you want Lightning Strike, you can make a case for that. That's a pretty good card. But I'm still happy that we got Shock. I'd much rather play this than Galvanic Bombardment a lot of the time because it's not dead against control. You know, I like the card a good bit. This can also take out Planeswalkers and stuff that have gone really low on the loyalty count. So all kinds of good things about Shock. I did not expect to get this card back, but we did. So thank you, Wizards. You gave us this card back. It's not Lightning Bolt, it's not Lightning Strike, whatever. But you did your best, and I'm happy for it. I'm glad to have Shock back. Here's a new card, though. This is Indomitable Creativity. It's X and 3 red mana. For a sorcery, destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until an artifact or creature card is revealed and exiles that card. Those players put the exiled cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle their libraries. This effect seems blue to me. It's like a polymorph kind of thing. 3 red mana is an awful lot, but red doesn't usually get the ability to unconditionally kill creatures. So that's actually kind of good, and you can like trade your goblins for bigger creatures, maybe, you know, something like that. You know, dragon fodder tokens or something. Or, you know, sacrifice a poopy artifact and get like a Colossus. You know, that could totally happen too. I'm not really sure how much play the card's actually going to see. 3 red mana is an awful lot, and you can't really control the effect that much unless we get some sort of divining top thing. We already have some scry in the format, so there's that to consider, but I'm just not really seeing it too much. Here's Secret Salvage right here. It's 5 mana, that's 3 and 2 black for a sorcery. Exile target non-land card from your graveyard. Search your library for any number of cards with the same name as that card, reveal them, and put them into your hand. You know, at first I wasn't too keen on Secret Salvage. I was like, nah, whatever, 5 mana is a lot. But, you know, you get to thinking about it. I still don't think this card will see a whole lot of play. But you could always, like, my dream is to exile a Galvanic Bombardment and go get the other 3. That seems pretty good. Or you exile, like, a Disallow or Void Shatter, and you go get the other 3 counterspells and lock up the game. That seems good. What's up, y'all? Nighttime Dev back again. Just wanted to break in right quick. Because earlier when I was talking about this card, I forgot to freak out about Hedron Alignment. So it was on my mind. It's like I forgot it in that moment. Basically, yeah, there's a Hedron Alignment in your graveyard. You go ahead and exile it, fulfill that clause. Go get the other 3. There's 1 in your hand. You can easily discard 1 other and then play another. So Hedron Alignment might actually be a real thing. Let's try and make it happen, guys. We're gonna do it. Here's Weld Fast Engineer right here. He's 1, a black and a red. That's 3 mana for a 3/3 creature. I don't have the translation of the creature type yet, and I'm sorry about that. At the beginning of your combat step, target artifact creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I actually kind of like this. I really like this cycle of uncommon 3 mana gold creatures that we're seeing. Those are all like kind of pushed, honestly. This could see some play in a red-black artifacts deck. We've already seen the red-black artifact aggro deck do a little bit of work. You know, it's got Inventor's Apprentice, it's got Unlicensed Disintegration, it's got Scrap Heap Scrounger, and this can come down and give your Scrap Heap Scrounger a +2/+0 bonus the turn it comes into play. That seems pretty good. So you get like 2 haste power out of it. You also get 2 power every single turn after that, as long as you have an artifact creature. And 3 mana for a 3/3 is pretty good as far as curve goes. So yeah, you can almost look at this as 3 mana for a 5/3. That's kind of good, but it splits that extra 2 power onto another creature, which is actually kind of better. So I like this. I actually like this a lot. I'm going to try to play it. End of the day, though, I'm not really sure that it fits into red-black artifact aggro. It's a little bit high on the curve. So there's that. You know, we don't know the creature type just yet. I'm sure that we will by the time this video comes out. But in any case, the card looks good, but it will have to stand up to testing. Here's another card that requires a translation. There's a lot of those today. Thanks, Wizards. I mean, I know that people speak other languages, but still, it's a lot of work for me. This is Lightning Runner right here. It's 5 mana. That's 3, a red, and a red for a 2/2 human warrior with double strike and haste. And whenever Lightning Runner attacks, you get 2 energy. Then you may pay 8 energy. If you do, untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Hey, it's one of these. Haven't seen an additional combat phase card in like a really long time. Wizard says they didn't like them. So I'm kind of surprised that they made this. And I'm kind of surprised they made it so sustainable. I mean, you can do it. If you have like 16 energy, you can do it twice. It's really good. If you have 24, you do it 3 times. And people have already said if you have 4 of these out, then you can just keep doing it over and over. They'll generate 8 energy, so that's kind of cool. But 5 mana, end of the day, 5 mana for a 2/2 double strike haste is not like the best deal ever. I do like that you get energy when it attacks, whether you elect to use it to get another combat step or not. So I think the card's cool, but sometimes cool cards don't become constructed powerhouses or anything. I think it's cool. They're going to definitely try and make like a budget mono red thing with this is the top of the curve and just get a bunch of attack steps. And it seems awesome. But I'm not really sure as far as, you know, competitive play. Here's Walking Ballista right here. It's XX for a 0/0 construct. It's an artifact creature. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. And you can pay 4 to put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista. And then you can remove a +1/+1 counter and have Walking Ballista deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So it's got like a Triskelion thing going on, sort of, you know. New Hangerback Walker, this is not. So I wouldn't get like super excited about it. I think it's a fine card, and we're getting into some cool stuff rather than some really overpowered stuff. Maybe the Artifact Aggro deck will play this, but unlike Hangerback Walker, I don't think that it's worth it to pay 2 mana to get a 1/1, 4 mana for a 2/2, and all that. And yeah, you can add counters to it as the game goes on, but it's fairly expensive to do that. Good news is that it doesn't cost any mana to remove counters, and you can always, you know, move +1/+1 counters onto this thing somehow and end up doing a bunch of damage. So there's ways to break the card. I'm just, again, like the last couple of cards, this looks very cool. I just don't think it's going to break standard, obviously. Here's Call for Unity right here. It's 3, a white, and a white. That's 5 mana for an enchantment. Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, put a Unity counter on Call of Unity if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn. And creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Unity counter on Call of Unity. Alright, so is there a cycle of underpowered 5 mana enchantments in this set? I think there might be. This, I don't think we'll see a whole lot of standard play. I mean, 5 mana for an Anthem effect is not great. When we've already got Always Watching, we've already got Gideon. I think that Angel of Invention is probably a better Anthem effect than this at 5 mana, you know. So, but this is less killable, I guess, than Angel of Invention, so there's that going for it. But you could always, like, there's always the chance that it doesn't do anything the turn it comes into play. There's always the chance that you paid 5 mana to, you know, like, miss a turn or two with this over the course of the game. And yeah, as the game goes on, your creatures will get bigger and bigger, and that's pretty cool, you know, but I'm just not seeing it, especially in an aggro deck that wants to finish fairly quickly. But, you know, maybe in a tokens build or something. I just think that it's really expensive, though. Here's Aethertide Whale right here. He's 6 mana. That's 4 and 2 blue for a 6/4 Flying Whale. Love the Flying Whales on Kaladesh. When Aethertide Whale enters the battlefield, you get 6 energy, and you can pay 4 energy to return the whale to its owner's hand. Alright, so this is actually probably better than it looks. You know, it's Crawlworm stats, 6 mana for a 6/4, but they staple flying onto it. And it gives you a butt ton of energy. You pay 1 mana for each energy when it comes into play. That's, you know, well, you know what I mean. You pay 6 for 6 energy on a 6/4 flying. Not bad. And it costs less than that to use its own ability. So every time it comes into play, it's actually generating you more energy. That's cool. It's like a, you know, perpetual motion machine sort of. That's kind of awesome. You know, as long as you have the mana, you'll net 2 energy when you play the thing. So that's cool. And we've also got like Aether Squall Ancient in the format, and this seems like it might go in that deck. 6 energy. is an awful lot, especially on a 6/4 flyer. I just want to say this again. If you get this in limited, you play it. You play a 6 mana 6/4 flyer already, plus all the energy. Yeah, you play the crap out of this. We've made it to the implements cycle here. These are 5 different common artifacts, a lot like puzzle knots in a way, that all cost 1 to 3 mana to cast, and you can pay 1 colored mana, sack them, and they do a thing. And when they hit the graveyard, you draw a card. So let's talk about these. The red one is pay a red, sack it, and it deals a damage to a player, and it only costs 1 to cast. The blue one costs 3 to cast. You pump a blue into it, you sack it, and you draw a card. The green one just costs 1 to cast. You pay a green, you sack it, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. Implement of Malice is the black one. That is pay a black and sack it, and target player discards a card. And then the white one is pay a white and sack it. You gain 2 life. Now, some of these you can only activate at sorcery speed. The black one you can only use as a sorcery, and then the green one you can only use as a sorcery as well. So there is that minor difference. Overall, I kind of like these, especially the ones that only cost 1 mana to cast and 1 mana to put into the graveyard, because you'll end up drawing a card and doing a thing for very, very little mana. And you'll put an artifact in the graveyard for Delirium, and you'll activate Revolt. This is great, you know? You'll have something to use for improvise. So I like all of these in limited play, and in standard, there's actually an argument for a couple of them. I think the blue and the black ones cost 3, and that's a little too much, honestly. But the ones that cost 1 mana, I really, really like that red one an awful lot. The one that gains you life, meh. The one that puts a +1/+1 counter on has synergy with some things that are currently in this format, but I don't like that you can only use it as a sorcery. Meanwhile, the red one you can do anytime you want, and you can hit a planeswalker with it if you want to. These look good in sealed, limited, all that, draft, but I'm not 100% sure about standard play for any of these. But we might see. I didn't think that the puzzle knots were going to see much play, but the green one does, so we'll see. Here's Barrel's Expertise right here. This is 5 mana, that's 3 and 2 blue for a sorcery. Return up to 3 target artifacts and or creatures to their owner's hands. And you may cast a card with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Okay, so the sort of card advantage on this is actually really, really good. You spin this out of your hand, that's 1 card, but then you can return 3 of your opponent's guys back to their hand, so you're up 2 cards on this. That's really, really good, by the way. And a lot of times, if you just return 3 creatures to their owner's hands, you've kind of wiped the board against things that aren't like tokens. So this could sort of be of a pseudo board wipe for 5 mana and get you a free 4 mana or less card. 4 mana is an awful lot. You can do an awful lot with this. Like a free Gideon or other Planeswalker or Dovin or something off of this. That seems pretty awesome. So I like all of the expertises so far, you know. Getting free cards is always really good. So we'll have to wait and see. I think this could definitely see some play, no doubt. But we've made it to one of the best cards of the day, or at least one of the most fun to talk about. This is Beryl or Baral, Chief of Compliance. This is 2 mana, that's 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary human wizard. And instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. But it's not over, actually. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This is so good. This is pretty darn good, you guys. I'm not really sure how often control decks are going to want to tap out on turn 2, but in all honesty, what else are you going to do? You know, negate or ceremonious rejection is probably the big one in this format. Sometimes you might play revolutionary rebuff or something, but I think that if you're just dropping this on turn 2, you're probably doing okay because most of your counterspells in standard come online on turn 3. So this does not look like a bad 2 mana play at all, and it turns all of your like 3 mana counterspells into regular old counterspells. That's really, like, it makes disallow better than an actual counterspell. That's really good. And all your card draw, like now Glimmer of Genius only costs 3. That's so good, especially considering in control, you're often trying to pack a bunch of plays into the end of their turn. You know, you want to anticipate and Glimmer and leave mana up for a counter in case they get, you know, froggy during the end of their turn or something. So something like this is really good that allows you to spend less mana and keep some open for countering spells while still allowing you to play card draw. So I just love Beryl, and the idea that you get to loot whenever you counter a spell is absolutely crazy. Crazy. You get card selection whenever you counter. Can we make countering spells any better? Here's how you do it. Like, this card is almost a little unfair, but it does die to a lot of stuff. The issue is it doesn't die to shock. Doesn't die to Galvanic Bombardment the first time it's played, but it does die to Harness Lightning and Grasp of Darkness. It dies to Fatal Push, so there's that, you know. Card is definitely killable. Card is fair as far as I'm concerned, but obviously incredibly powerful for the control decks. Here's Hidden Stocks right here. It's a black and a white. That's 2 mana for an enchantment with Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, create a 1/1 colorless servo creature token. You can also pay 1 of anything and sacrifice a creature to scry 1. Okay, I really want to like this card, but is it okay if I kind of don't? Like Black-White Aristocrats or just the, Human Aristocrats deck from a few seasons ago is one of my favorite decks of all time, and this obviously calls back to that. We've still got Zulaport Cutthroat in the format. We just saw Yahini, another good sacrifice outlet. So this could definitely go, especially in like the Black-White Allies deck. It seems like that's what it wants to be in, but we're not using like, what is it, Vampiric Rites? We're not using that in that deck. If I got the name wrong, it's this card right here. These are very close to, these are very similar cards, and we're already not playing the one of them. So this costs extra colored mana to play. You only get a scry out of it when you do sack a thing. Sure, it's a sack outlet, but you have to pay for the thing, and I don't know, man. I'm just not 100%. Here's Solemn Recruit right here. It's 3 mana. That's 1 and 2 white for a 2/2 Dwarf Soldier with Double Strike and Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Solemn Recruit. Another in the lengthening series of 3 mana 2/2 double strikes in white. And I don't like this one as much as I've liked, like the one with Soul Bond was incredible. This is not quite as good, but it's still okay. 3 mana for a 2/2 double strike is not too much to ask already, especially if you can enchant it with auras and stuff. That's not bad. And if it just goes off with Revolt like once or twice, you'll end up with a 3 or 4/4 double strike, which is not bad at all. This could be better than I'm giving it credit for right here, because your creatures will die in an aggro deck. So if you can keep this guy from dying and get him up to like a 5/5, then you're doing something right. So he could see some play, but right now, if he was a human, I would consider that. I would maybe consider that, but not being human kind of hurts a little bit, honestly. The last card spoiled, as of the recording of this video at least, is Exquisite Archangel right here. It's 7 mana, that's 5 and 2 white for a 5/5 angel with flying. And if you, this is neat, if you would lose the game, instead exile Exquisite Archangel and your life total becomes your starting life total. Go. Okay, so a replacement effect for losing the game. Pretty cool right there. It's not Platinum Angel or anything, so there's that. But it's still really cool. 7 mana is very, very steep, yes, but even if you're at like 1 or 2 by the time you put this out, then, you just reset your life total when you die. So that's not, I like a lot of things about the card. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's definitely fun. At least for casual play. If not, constructed, I don't think this will bust standard wide open or anything. And again, I don't think it's the best card ever printed or whatever, but I do think that it's really, really neat. And we've seen a lot of overpowered cards already this week. Now it's time to see some cool stuff, and this is definitely that. Hey, Nighttime Dev to bring us home here. That's all we've got for right now. That's all the spoilers that currently exist, but it's not quite midnight as I record this nighttime video here, so there may be a couple of more before the night's over. So stick with us. We may be back. Not totally sure, but let me know how you felt about all of these down there in the comments section. Make sure you hit like, sub if you're new, and then hit the bell to get all the new spoiler videos when they come out. I'm Deb from SBMTG. This is Julie. You never get to see Julie. She's like the sweetest cat in the house, but you never get to see her, and that sucks. You're a good kitty, Julie. And I will see you guys next time. I'm Dev from SBMTG. I've already said that, but I'm just trained to do it at this point. Thanks for watching, my wizards.